Hi, this is Patricia Stepp with Your Dream Power, and I just have a question. Have you ever known somebody who either gets tired of setting goals and stops, or maybe never has because they don't feel like they ever work? I know I felt this way many times. In fact, I would say goal after goal I did not achieve, and I couldn't figure it out. Like, what was I missing? Because I tried to follow everything that I was, listening to speakers and, following steps and books and so on. And yet I couldn't figure out the success. And then if any of you've known the story of my son, like he just comes off and gets this 80 some $1,000 scholarship. And I was like, how did he do it? Because I knew he had done it, but he didn't get through all those steps that I was doing with setting goals. So it was really frustrating. And while I was happy for him, I was so frustrated for myself. And, I was like beating myself up, like, what do I not get? Well, the thing is, he unconsciously followed the laws that are out in the universe, just like gravity. If you jump off the building, you're going down, you're not going to go up. And there are laws in the universe as to how to do success. And when you do things in a certain way, you will have success. Now, you don't know when that success is going to come. And the difficulty is the continual focus on doing things in a certain way. And that can be a problem. But anyhow, this is a favorite part of my book, of The Science of Getting Rich. And it's because it's just talking about this certain way of doing things and why we need to follow it. And when I read this book, it was like eye-opening to me because I understood what my son had done and the things that I had missed all that time. So we have a thought, and we have this thought that we put into the universe. Now, for some of you, this might be a little too woo-woo, and I'm sorry, but I guarantee you it was too woo-woo for me also about 10 years ago. And when I read this book and I'd seen what my son had done, that's when I realized that, oh, indeed, this is the way it works. If you'd have told me this prior to that, I wouldn't have believed you either. But then I could look back at times in my life when I actually did achieve something, and this was exactly what I followed. Give you a quick example. When I was in college, which was many moons ago, but when I was in college, my big goal was to be on the dean's list every semester. And so what I would do is I would get a list of the classes I was taking, and I would come up with a mathematical equation as to, which ones I had to get A's in and which ones I could get B's in and still make the dean's list. You see, I didn't see myself as a straight A student. So getting straight A's was like the furthest thing from my mind. But I knew I could get on the dean's list. See, that's self-confidence, that's self-image. And so I would figure out, okay, if I get an A here and an A here, and a B here is okay. And you know what? Almost every semester, my grades were exactly what I had decided they were going to be at the beginning of the semester, which makes me wonder what would have happened if I had decided to get straight A's. I don't know. But anyhow, that's how this works. You see, I put that information out there unknowingly, and it produced the tangible result that I wanted. Simple as that. So you put that thought out, whatever goal you have, put it out into the universe so that the substance, which is omnipresent, penetrates everything, and it will start to find the resources you need. See, here's the other thing. You don't have to know the how. I remember when I first met Bob Proctor and he was talking about, you don't need to know the how you're going to do, just know what you want. I'm thinking that's crazy. You have to have the how. Well, you don't. You have to have something that you're going to do, some action that you'll take. And as you move forward, as you put in that action, the steps will start to come to you and you'll start to see opportunities, but you have to realize that that's an opportunity for you. Okay. So he says here, every thought of form held in a thinking substance, causes the creation of the form, but always, or at least generally, long growth and action already established. So as far as we know, it's going to grow in an orderly way, in something that deals with nature. It's not going to be like a magical thing appearing, right? So there is going to be a growth form. So if you dream of a new house, it's not going to appear in front of you. However, somebody might think of the same house that you're thinking of and build it. So that's a possibility. It says no thought or form can be impressed upon the original substance without causing the creation of the form. Now, listen to that. No thought of form can be impressed upon the original substance without causing the creation of that form. So whatever you decide, whatever you want, put that out there and it's going to happen. Now, stay with me, because if you miss the next part, you could miss getting that thing that you really want. So he goes on to say, first we assert that there is one original formless stuff or substance from which all things are made. There's one thing from which all things are made. Talk to scientists about that. I mentioned that one time to a friend of mine who has a PhD in a science field, and she said, yeah, you're exactly right. So there's one substance from which all things are made, okay? And this stuff is a thinking stuff. A thought held in it produces the form of that thought. Thought held in it. I just read that in a previous sentence, right? So a thought held in that form. Now, listen to those words. Thought held in that form, not a thought that, was whimsical and forgotten. Thought held in the form, okay, produces a thought, and the substance produces that shape, okay? So his thesis then is, there is a thinking stuff from which all things are made, which in its original state penetrates, penetrates, and fills the inner spaces of the universe. A thought in this substance produces the thing that is imaged by the thought. Man can form in his thought, and by impressing his thought upon the formless substance, can cause the thing he thinks about to be created. That's how we do it. That's how I accomplish every goal I accomplish. That's how you've accomplished every goal you've accomplished. Consciously or unconsciously, you've put that thought in this substance and you've thought about it over and over again. And then the thing that you wanted was created. Now, Wallace goes on to say, I have said that men get rich by doing things in a certain way. And in order to do so, men must be able to think in a certain way. So we have to think, not just take the action. We have to think in a certain way. How is that way? By putting the thought in there and focusing on it. Okay. To do things in a certain way, you want to do them. You will have to acquire the ability to think the way you want to think. This is the first step in getting rich. Think the way you want to think. That is to think what you want, regardless of what your senses are seeing. You think what you want, which he calls truth, the goal that you want, which is not necessarily what you see in front of you. Might not be what's your bank account, might not be the car you're driving, it might not be the house you're living in, it might not be the position at work that you want, it might not be the business that you want, because you're focusing on what's in front of you instead of focusing on what you truly want. So to think in a certain way is to think the truth regardless of appearance. So stop letting the physical world dictate to you. Stop allowing that disappointment, or stop allowing that goal that you might maybe don't reach dictate who you are, or dictate to you your self-worth. I remember I went in the last couple of years, I've been to a number of different in-person events, even during COVID. And one of them was a little bit before COVID, but the people that were there were all high achieving people. And yet nearly every single one of them said that they didn't feel like they were good enough. They didn't think they were good enough. You see, Why is that? Was because we don't understand how to accomplish a goal, and therefore when we don't reach it, that kind of makes us like, I'm not good enough. Or maybe somebody has told you that, or maybe, in your upbringing, you were, never told you're not good enough, maybe, but you got that feeling that you weren't good enough. So we have to not allow the physical world to dictate our self-worth and our self-image. And of course, that's one of our biggest paradigms that we have, is a self-image. And when we can overcome the image that we hold of ourselves, we're unstoppable. So what else goes on to say here? That every man has a natural and inherent power to think the way he wants to think. You see, we have magical powers inside of us. One of them is to be able to think the way we want to think. Viktor Frankl, when he was in the concentration camps, he thought the way he wanted to think, which is probably why he survived the concentration camps in World War II. So we have that power inside of us to think what we want to think. So we can think, use our imagination, what we want. So, but it requires, to be able to do this, to think what we want to think, requires more effort than it does to think thoughts which are suggested by appearances. To think according to appearance is easy. To think regardless of appearance is laborious and requires the expenditure of more power than any other work man is called to perform. So to think what we want, to think truth, the goal that we want, is very difficult when we see things crumbling around us. But we have to keep focused on what we want. There is no labor from which most people shrink as they do from sustained consecutive thought. It is the hardest work in the world. This is especially true when truth is contrary to appearances. Every appearance in the visible world tends to produce a corresponding form in the mind, which observes it, and can only be prevented by holding the thought of the truth. So everything that you see, every result that you have, produces a thought in your mind. So you look at the empty bank accounts, you look at the poor grades you get in school, you look at the lack or limitation of whatever it is, and that produces a thought in your mind. And the only way to keep that thought from corrupting your truth is to be able to switch to what you want and to think the truth. He who acquires this power to be able to think the truth becomes a mastermind, and he can conquer faith. He can have whatever he wants. So truth will set you free. If you've ever heard that, the truth. The truth is what you decide to think, and it will set you free. It says this power can only be acquired by getting hold of the basic fact which is behind all appearances. And that fact is that there is a thinking substance from which and by which all things are made. So you have to understand that thinking substance is working for you, but you can't confuse it. You can't have one thought one week and one different thought another week, and then another week you have a different goal. You have to keep focused on what you want. I've been very intentional for the past 30 days to set my goal and to keep focused on it and not to become distracted, not to say, okay, well, I'm not close to where my goal is to end, and panic and switch it. No, I'm staying very focused and intentional about my goal and just doing the work I need to do in order to accomplish it. So it says here that we lose all doubt and fear. When we realize this, we lose all doubt and fear, for we know that we can create what we want to create, and we can have what we want to have, and can become what we want to be. Isn't that good news? When you understand that you create your own reality, that's basically what he's saying here. You create the reality you want. And the only reason you don't have that reality right now is because maybe you didn't even understand it. I'd never heard that until the last couple of years, that you create your own reality. You get to choose. You have the power to choose, but if you choose not, then you allow the world to just kind of toss you around however it wants. And that's fine if that's the kind of life you want. But understand that as human beings, as far as we know, we're the only animal in the animal kingdom that has that power to choose and decide what they want. So I hope that's helpful to you. That is like one of my favorite chapters in the book of Science of Getting Rich, and love it, and would love to hear your thoughts. Oh, and I put in a comment section that I am offering a 4-week course starting November the 1st. And just let me know if you're interested in it, and I'll get you the information. And it's going to be a mastermind Q&A type situation, so you can ask me questions, and we'll figure out how to get you to think the truth regardless of appearance. So Patricia, step with your dream power. Be the magic in your dream.